Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy RB3 here for First Cut, and yeah, this is a better late than never review for the new Tom Cruise movie Mission Impossible Death Reckoning Part 1, aka Mission Impossible 7. Yeah, this is the third film in the Mission Impossible franchise from director Chris McQuarrie. He also pens the script for this, and it's part 1 of 2 of, I thought was supposed to be a finale for this franchise, but Tom Cruise has said that he wanted this to go as long as Indiana Jones. We know what Indiana Jones did this year box office wise. I don't know if you really want to proclaim that. In fact, so far this year, in the release of Mission Impossible 7, actually hasn't done the box office that many were expecting it to do, including Tom Cruise himself. Now, you would think, this was a perfect release date, it's midsummer, people would be into it, but unfortunately it got caught up in the heat of Barbieheimer, which, again, I don't think Tom Cruise expected. I don't think he expected his movie to be outclassed by the Barbie live-action film or the 3-hour wartime drama about the guy who created the atomic bomb, but nevertheless, it happened, and I do think this movie was really good. Just off the bat, I'm gonna just give my opinion right here. I love this film. I saw it 3 times in theaters, 2 times before it came out, and a 3rd time when it was in theaters. I know everybody was talking about doing the Barbieheimer double feature. I thought that was a little ridiculous because they were such different movies. My personal double feature was actually Mission Imbarkable. It was actually seeing Mission Impossible first and then Barbie with my girlfriend. We did that double feature, and that was fun. That was really fun. I mean, Oppenheimer and Mission Impossible do have some of the same problems in the fact of, like, they're so long. Not problems, but in terms of, like, commercial viability, right? They are on the longer side. They are more talk heavy, and then, compared to Barbie, which is much more imaginative, much more fantastical. But nevertheless, Mission Impossible was just a flat out great time. Now, I know this movie was filmed largely during the pandemic, and is actually the one that Tom Cruise went on that tirade about when he had the voice message leak.
We are the gold standard. We're back here in Hollywood making movies right now because of us. We are creating thousands of jobs. I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone.
Now, I personally got upset about that moment when it happened live during the pandemic, 2020, 2021. I'm not sure exactly when it was, because I've been on film sets. I've worked with people who have, ego problems, or narcissists on sets, and they will just yell for no reason. I'm like, yo, is this Tom Cruise doing this? Because if I'm not mistaken, he might have yelled at somebody before. Was that Christian Bale? I'm not really sure. I just wasn't really tolerating it. I'm just not rocking with Cruise as the image of this powerful savior of Hollywood. And we're not going to shut down this effing movie. Man, I don't want to hear it. You ain't got to talk. If I'm that PA, I would have swung. You know what I mean? Tom Cruise, like, what, 5 something? And let me say this. People think, oh, you're messing on Tom Cruise. Listen, Mission Impossible is my favorite franchise of all time. If you're a long time First Cut listener, and again, long time means we started this channel in 2019, so you probably didn't even watch this in real time, but if you listen to the Meaning of podcast back in the day with me and Andres, or Schmoes Know back in the day when we were on that show, yeah, that was, I was a big Mission Impossible fan. Those movies will always reliably be in my top 10 films of the year. And the last one, Fallout, I believe I saw like 4 times in theater. So I still have a little bit of catching up to do with Death Reckoning. I think I might have to see it one more time before it leaves the cinemas. But this movie is on par with the previous 3 installments. In fact, I would say it's really up there. I might have a little bit of a harder time putting this above Mission Impossible Fallout, if I'm being honest, namely because I think the long take action sequence in the 5th one, where he's jumping out of the plane and we see that stunt and the execution of it, I thought was just next level. It was beautiful. The big jaw-dropping stunt in this one, if you've seen, they marketed way a year early, is obviously him jumping off that mountain in the motorcycle, which is an amazing stunt. Don't get me wrong, definitely brilliant, definitely fun, and definitely really cool to see multiple times. I love the silent dropout that the sound kind of had in that moment. It was just breathtaking. Even when my girlfriend was watching it, she even looked over to me like, did this really happen? Like, did they really film this? Is that his real face? That's when the wind is like blowing and crashing through his face and he's saying lines. She's like, is this real? I'm like, yeah, they filmed this. They released that footage of them filming it. Like, that was the first thing they released. But then I love that stunt, but then what was even harder, which I'm glad they didn't even mark it, and again, this is a spoiler review. If you haven't peeped the title of this review, this is a spoiler review. So you heard my non-spoiler thoughts. I loved it. I'm going to tell you why I loved it. In 3, 2, 1, okay, spoilers on. Now, another thing that I loved beyond that motorcycle thing was immediately what happened after on the train. I loved everything that happened on the train sequence in the third act. That was one of the most fun action set pieces I've seen in a cool minute. It really did feel like Looney Tunes level cartoony, seeing the train going over the side of the bridge and falling car by car. And you have to... Christopher McQuarrie is such a brilliant director because he did such an amazing job laying the Easter eggs for each of the booths previously throughout the scene in just like subtle ways. So you see Hayley Atwell's character, walking through the kitchen. Vanessa Kirby comes back as the White Widow, but she's being played undercover by Grace, who was Hayley Atwell in the scene. But you see her in one of the like fancier booths with the piano playing. It's just a really funny, they find fun ways through conversation and through talk to introduce these locations, but then it explodes in a bombastic, exciting way at the end. And then seeing that piano come back when it was hanging over the two, like it was like a Looney Tunes cartoon, like it was a dangly piano. It was so fun, man. I just loved it. The mountain sequence was great. The train sequence was my favorite. My second favorite scene was the airport scene that kind of acts as the end of Act 1. In this airport sequence is where we actually get introduced to Hayley Atwell's character of Grace. She's a pickpocketer. She's a thief. She has really no connection to the rest of these guys in any way. Ethan or, Simon Pegg is back. And Rhames is back, obviously, but these guys have no relation to who Hayley Atwell's character is. But this film does a good job of like indoctrinating her into the mythology, even from the very beginning when we see Tom Cruise giving the little intro to the new Mission Impossible agent that they look like they're recruiting. It's funny because we're 7 movies deep into this franchise, but we're still getting new mythology, still getting new lore, still getting a deeper understanding as to how this whole world works, and while staying in the same prism of the universe. Like if you saw the first movie and you saw Kit Rich, his return in this film was really dope too. Henry Czerny, yeah, that guy, he's back in it. Having Issa Faust return, played by the great Rebecca Ferguson, in the opening sequence was fantastic as well. It wasn't the exact it was the opening action sequence, the shootout in the dust storm. It's funny, we saw the 4th Mission Impossible movie with Brad Bird also have that big dust storm that Tom Cruise is running through. This was like Christopher McQuarrie's take on it, which is funny. I love seeing, that's one of my favorite parts about the Mission Impossible franchise up until the Chris McQuarrie kind of takeover, is that you could kind of see this story and this format, how it's used by different directors. First movie, Brian De Palma. Second movie, John Woo. Third movie, J.J. Abrams. Fourth movie, Brad Bird. Now it's kind of become a Chris McQuarrie, namely creative endeavor with Tom Cruise, of course. Obviously, he's the main producer of these films and is the architect of them. But it does kind of, these last 3 films, compared to the first 4, or like a lot more disjointed, distorted, not really having a through line and story to it. These 3 definitely feel like its own trilogy. When you're talking about Ghost Nation, Rogue Nation, Fallout, and this new one, Death Reckoning, it kind of feels like its own trilogy and its own series in a way. And that's why when Issa Faust comes back, you're like, oh yeah, it's like our legacy characters. This is probably like the longest a woman has lasted in this franchise, because obviously again, Tom Cruise, his character Ethan Hunt, he's been married in the past. He's had Thandie Newton helping him out. He's had Paula Patton helping him out. He's had mad side people helping him out and just never come back. Now Issa was like the first one that's kind of like, okay, we're kind of having a rhythm here. But guess what, y'all? She dies. She dies halfway through this movie, and it was heartbreaking. It was tragic. And honestly, I felt little bit disrespected about it. That's my major critique with this movie. In fact, if I had one big thing that keeps this film from being a 10 out of 10 greatest action movie of the year situation for me, or greatest of all time kind of situation, is just of how Issa Faust is treated in this movie. She only really has one notable scene of dialogue where and in that scene of dialogue, she's basically justifying her death, like basically saying, it's okay if I die, it's okay if anybody dies. And the scene that's leading up to them going to the club and, they're first like talking to Grace and all that, she had a lot to do action-wise, but not many lines. She was mostly a prop, which was a little bit crazy to me. I guess they wanted to substitute the personality or substitute the fun with Hayley Atwell's character, Grace, which is nice. Again, it's like they switch out these women every movie, and now it's like we finally had a recurring one, and she ends up dying. So it's like, But I guess now Hayley Atwell is like the new sub-in for Rebecca Ferguson, which I think there's more than enough room for multiple women in these franchises, if I'm being honest. I would love to see it just be Tom Cruise fighting evil men, but with all these female associates around her. What is the MacGuffin of this film? It's actually AI, weirdly enough. Ethan Hunt is hunting down the Entity. The Entity is this all-powerful AI software that can control marine ships, submarine ships, mad crazy stuff. It's a different kind of thing, but they are utilizing that technology. At least nobody's utilizing it. This technology is on its own. It's self-sufficient, self-running AI. It's kind of had a mind of its own, and it just wants to be left alone. But all the powerful world governments wants to get their hands on it, and I guess the AI knows that. So I don't really know where the plot's going with the future film, with the next film, or with this whole thing in general. I know it's a lot. I know Tom Cruise is very much against AI. I think he had a whole thing in his contract that says he can't be scanned in for visual effects or CGI. Hey man, all power to you, brother. I feel you. That stuff's scary. I don't want that either. But it's interesting seeing that play out as a villain in the film, seeing how powerful an AI villain could be, because this villain's like setting up whole people, whole locations, predicting circumstances like to the T, running mass scenarios. Again, I don't know much about AI. Maybe I'm just a dumb human who like doesn't pay attention to things. But if AI could really do all the stuff that it's saying this movie can do, it's kind of freaking me out. On another hilarious point, since we're talking spoilers, going back to that airport sequence, the fact that the AI is bad because it's masking out Gabriel and hiding him from security footage, yeah, that's cool and dandy. But aren't they kind of doing the same thing when they are deep faking Tom Cruise's face on random people inside of the airport? Like they have that scene of the guy in the head wrap just randomly getting pressed by Bridges, the police officer in this film. Who's looking for Ethan Hunt, like, yo, are you him? Like, he's putting his fingers in the dude's mouth and stuff. It's funny. It's funny stuff, but it's like, yo, what? They're kind of doing the same thing. They're just doing it with human control, which I guess is the difference in the AI versus, humanity, creativity discussion, which I'm all here for. I totally support. But it's still just like, yo, what's going on here? Because that really is what is the core of these Mission Impossible movies. It's Tom Cruise versus the world. It's Tom Cruise versus the government. It's Tom Cruise versus AI. And you know who's going to win? Tom Cruise, baby. Ethan Hunt. He's going to come out on top. So that's what I think there's just a consistent theme throughout these movies that I just think is so fun and so hilarious. Like there's even that scene when Luther is talking to Ethan, like, I have to depart, Ethan. But remember one thing, the AI anticipates you wanting to kill Gabriel. Do not kill Gabriel. Do not do it. But yeah, at this point, I'm just rambling. Let me get to some of the specifics that I really, really loved about this film. Shout out to Tom Cruise. He's always great as Ethan Hunt. As always, the new villain, Gabriel, played by Esai Morales, is really amazing as well. His kind of henchman character is played by Klementieff from, if you watch the Marvel content, Guardians of the Galaxy, she plays Mantis. But here she's playing like the psychotic French killer who is just insane. It's just hilarious. Oh, and okay, I said that my second favorite action scene was the airport sequence. I'll still give it that second since I already said it and I already put that out to the universe. My third favorite one, though, which really should be my second, is when they're in Rome and they're going through that whole car chase the whole car chase sequence. I mean, beginning from showing Hayley Atwell's character being the bad driver, and then Tom Cruise being also a bad driver when he gets into the little Fiat whip. And then somehow when Hayley Atwell, she's a terrible driver in the big car, but then in the little Fiat, she's low-key whipping. So it's just like a really funny turnaround, them being handcuffed together and all that. I think the reason I forgot about that scene, honestly, is even though I saw this movie 3 times, I actually saw that scene 4 times, because that sequence was the exact sequence they showed us at CinemaCon, all the way from her interrogating, her being interrogated by the French police by the Italian police officer, up until like right before the train was about to hit Tom Cruise. That was a preview that we saw at CinemaCon, so I was already pretty familiar with that. Some other funny jokes. I know people on Twitter were laughing about like, oh, they made Gabriel seem like he was from like the previous movies, and he really wasn't. Like, yeah, I knew he wasn't, because I knew he wasn't. I watched these movie franchises and I knew he wasn't, so I knew that wasn't like a callback to anything. But I do think it was funny that they purposefully shot it like it looked like something from the first Mission Impossible movie, and that kind of style, and made it kind of stylized that 90s aesthetic, and not have it be part of any kind of real connection. But the real Mission Impossible fans do know Kit Ridge. We do see the White Widow coming back. We saw the picture of Angela Bassett in the background of the one scene with the CIA director and Kit Ridge and all them. I guess if you're a Tom Cruise fan, you will recognize Charles Parnell. He was the black dude in Top Gun Maverick. He also comes back in a role here as one of the government guys, talking about what the Mission Impossible thing is. And that, action scenes are action scenes. They're great. Love action scenes. The editing in this movie, particularly during the montage of explaining the entity, where it's the multiple talking heads going back and forth, kind of conversing about each other in like this montage format. Meanwhile, a masked up Tom Cruise is entering the building, but it's like with this super villain theme music, so you're thinking it's some guy undercover about to kill all these like government officials. It was so dope. Like, I love, and then it ends with obviously Tom Cruise throwing up the green smoke bomb and knocking everybody to sleep in the room except for Kit Ridge. That was amazing. The build up to that was spectacular. I literally went back like the second time to rewatch it. I was like, yo, I cannot wait for the scene. Like, I cannot wait for the scene. It was right in the beginning, but it was so well done and well edited. And I know people online were talking about, the eye lines, editors, editor talk, editor Twitter, editor Facebook. The eye lines didn't match up. The eye lines didn't make sense. Who cares? I love it. That's what made it cooler. It just made it look like they were just talking to some empty space about the deadness and the rawness of this entity. It was so dope. Otherwise, talking about the music too, Lauren Beth, if I'm not mistaken, the composer of this film. I know he was a mentee of Hans Zimmer back in the day. Chef's kiss, my friend. Chef's kiss. I have been running this soundtrack so hard. Particularly, I think the reason why I love that airport sequence so much is because it ends with this amazing. For one, the score that the last shot that it ends with is this gorgeous shot of Tom Cruise running on the roof of the Dubai airport, which is just crazy. Like, dang, bro, this dude's always running, but he's taking running to a different level. But then also the music that swells up. I believe the score piece is called "Get Out" or "Get Out Now." And that's like kind of, if you pay close enough attention, that's kind of like the theme that kind of transitions us from Act 1 to Act 2, Act 2 to Act 3, the midpoint climax, things of that nature, because it comes in, that theme, that song motif comes in again towards the middle, like close towards the end of Act 2, when Homegirl dies, when Issa dies from Gabriel and during the dope sword fight. And then it comes in again at the end. So I just think it's a really nice way of telling you, like, this is the different chapters of this movie. Man, so good. I cannot recommend this movie higher. Again, my major complaint is Issa Faust did not need to die. I want to see Issa Faust come back. I do not like her being dead. I don't like the fact that we just killed her off and got a new girl to come in for that. Like, you know, but okay, if that's what they're gonna do, if that's how the story's being engineered, I'm with it. I can't criticize the movie I want to see. I gotta criticize the movie that is. And the movie that is, beyond that unnecessary fridging of one of my favorite characters, is amazing. Is dope. I look forward to seeing this on home video. I love seeing it on the regular format. I saw it in 3 formats. Actually, I saw it in Dolby, I saw it in IMAX, and I saw it in regular. And, you know, unfortunately, you're not able to see it in Dolby or in IMAX anymore, I don't think. But I really did have a good time seeing this in IMAX. Dolby, of course, is just always peak. But yeah, if you've seen Mission Impossible Death Reckoning Part 1, let me know what your thoughts in the comments down below. I really did. I told myself going into this review, I'm going to do some deep analysis, go into the themes, go into the plot, you know, go into like how the replications of AI is really a metaphor for everything that's happening in society, And I didn't have any notes. I'm tired, and I just ended up rambling about this movie for like 20 minutes. So if you're still watching to this point, thanks again. And if you're not watching, and if you are still watching, make sure you subscribe to First Cut if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DirectorRB3. Follow us on TikTok as well. Yo, we are pushing out clips like no tomorrow, so stay with us there. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Mission Impossible fans, not Mission Impossible fans, where would you rank this in the Mission Impossible series? Like I said, if I'm ranking it based on the last 3, I'd probably say Fallout still my number 1. I still like Fallout just a little bit more. This is definitely a close number 2, and Rogue Nation is a close number 3. My favorite scene, my favorite shot in Rogue Nation for the sweaties is the one when Tom Cruise is like going around the hill on a motorcycle, but you can see his knee slightly taps the road for like 2 seconds. And if you're like, if you study physics or science, like if that happened for like 3 more milliseconds, Tom Cruise might not be alive. So just the fact that they had that and they captured that little drag on film is dope. Anyway, I'm done, y'all. Let me get some sleep. This is RB3 for First Cut, and yeah, we peacing out, y'all. Peace.
It's either me or you. It's either me or you. You do the